Is it just me, or is the hype for Sean O'Malley versus Aljamain Sterling not really there at all? I mean, everyone keeps saying Sean is the biggest star at bantamweight, which is fair, actually. I do think he is the biggest star for that weight class, but then why does no one care about this fight? I think there's two glaring reasons for this. One, Sean skidded by the teeth of the by the skin of his he skidded by the teeth. So he had a pretty close fight against Peter Yan, really close, very controversial. A lot of people thought he lost. Personally, I think it could have gone either way. I think rounds 1 and 3 were for Sean, but you could have given Peter round 1 easily. So that didn't help his case. But at the time, if you asked most people, Yan was the best 135er in the world. He had just made some pretty bad mistakes against Aljo by giving up his back. But then what really did not help was him getting 50-45'd by Merab. I mean, I don't think anyone was expecting that. So, to many, this fight was not representative of the two best bantamweights in the world fighting, because Merab is probably the best bantamweight in the world. The final reason, which I think was the reason from the very start, even before Merab fought Peter Yan, was it is a pretty clear consensus to most fans that the fight's going to go exactly like the Corey Sandhagen versus Aljamain Sterling fight went. Sean is going to get taken down, he's going to get his back taken, and he's going to get rear naked choked right off the bat. Now, I have certainly never had this opinion, that's for sure, so don't look at me. But after going back and watching some film study, I actually think Sean may have a much better chance than people think. The number one thing that I find with most MMA fans is that they're kind of stupid. And what I mean by that is, and especially when it comes to grappling, is they don't really understand any of the mechanics of it. A lot of times they just kind of like, oh, well, I mean, this guy is like a really good grappler, and before in the past, he's done this to guys. So I think that in this matchup, he's just going to do that because he's just better, and because he's better, he's just going to do that. Hey, look, fine. Aljo, without a doubt, is the better grappler than Sean O'Malley for sure, but let's try to look at this a little more intelligently. Let's do some film study, and let's see if Sean can do anything to possibly defend the back. 'Cause if you don't know this, you can defend giving up your back. Like, there's things you can do to stop that. So let's see what we're dealing with here. As I notioned to before, the number one thing I see stated is that this fight is going to be very similar to when Corey Sandhagen fought Aljo. And I understand why people are saying this. Corey and Sean both have a very similar build and a somewhat similar style, so it could be fair to assume there might be some similarities here. But when we look at Corey Sandhagen in general, he has a habit of giving up his back standing. We'll see right here, Aljo had Corey pushed up against the fence. Corey is currently using a whizzer to prevent Aljo from taking his back. Aljo is able to off-balance him down to one knee. Corey maintains the whizzer for a second, but then lets it go, which allows Aljo to fully circle to his back. And as Aljo jumps to get his hooks in, Corey slightly moves away from the fence, giving Aljo's foot just enough space to squeeze in. And Corey gets finished. Now let's look at when Corey fought TJ Dillashaw, which took place after this fight, and we see a very similar thing. Corey is using the whizzer there up against the fence. He, on his own volition, just lets it go. TJ then easily ducks under, taking the back standing, and Corey defends from here. He actually looks really comfortable doing so, and TJ doesn't get a lot off from this position. And there's multiple times in this fight that they were in this exact position with Corey giving up his back standing. Against Aljamain Sterling, though, this was a mistake. Aljo is a specialist from that position, and you can't give him that. But let's get some more examples. Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling 2. If you guys don't remember, Aljamain Sterling in the first fight got completely dominated. He had very little success, and Peter Yan was coasting to a pretty easy victory until Peter Yan illegally knees him in the head. Aljamain, realizing, okay, I can get out of here alive and give this another try, says he can't continue, and he wins the belt. Everyone and their grandma immediately hated Aljo, They could not wait for the rematch to finally happen because Peter Yan could finally destroy him and take his place as the rightful champion. Even Peter Yan was very uncharacteristically aggressive and angry during this fight. You know, he was just as frustrated as everyone else, probably even more. So when he got taken down, instead of smartly staying on his back, safely working his way up, he would immediately turn to his knees to try to turtle. Which is fine if you're fighting a pure wrestler, but Aljamain Sterling, Renzo Gracie black belt, immediately slid those hooks in, and now there's no escape. Paul Felder, my favorite commentator, may I add, reiterated this exact same point.
Because that's all he said to him, John, just don't when you're defending. He'd rather him fight from guard to push off, push the head away, and get up. Instead, he's such in a rush to get up, he's giving up his back to Sterling.
Now, taking a look at when Sean fought Peter Yan, we see his defense from the turtle position was really good. Whenever he got taken down against the octagon, he would turtle and keep one side pressed against the fence, not allowing any room for a hook to get in. Henry Cejudo got taken down by Aljo quite a few times too, all up against the fence, and he did this exact same thing, and he never got his back taken once. Now, out in the open, this is a bit harder to do. See, Aljo didn't have the skills to take Henry Cejudo down in the middle of the octagon. Henry Cejudo was an Olympic gold medalist. Against the fence, though, him and Aljo were equal. Now, Sean, I can definitely see getting taken down out in the open. If Aljo catches a kick or ducks underneath a punch, he can definitely end up on his back in the center. Now, Sean ended up here once with Peter Yan after getting rocked. He was on his back, out in the middle. Once getting just a little bit of separation, he thought about turtling, but he didn't force it like Yan was doing against Sterling. He conceded to being on his back, to scoot his way towards the fence. There were a few times, actually, Yan tried to circle to the back, but every time he did, Sean would push his hips away, preventing it, until he was able to get to the fence and build the base up safely. Now, Aljamain Sterling has said himself that he thinks this fight will be similar to the Corey Sandhagen one. He says looking at Sean, he thinks he's going to be weak when he grabs a hold of him, and he's going to be able to do whatever he wants. That might be true. The one difference between Sean O Malley and Corey Sandhagen is Sean has a lot more power. Almost every single fight Sean has, he rocks his opponent. Almost every single time. He's known for stopping guys with one punch. Corey isn't doing that. That fact alone makes this fight a lot more dangerous for Aljo. Sean's jiu-jitsu coach, Taquinho Mendez, former ADCC world champion, his head coach, Tim Welch, also a very well-versed grappler. I think they are very aware at what Aljamain Sterling is good at. And I think their entire camp is probably dedicated to defending back takes. Now, don't get me wrong. Aljamain is a nightmare matchup for someone like Sean. Complete nightmare matchup, and there's many ways he can win this fight. But this whole narrative of, oh, he's just going to take him down, take his back, rear naked choke him, fight's over immediately. It might be a little more complicated than that. If that is exactly how it goes down, then that means Sean completely choked, and everything he prepared for in camp went completely out the window. So if you ask me, I think whatever happens in this fight, that's not an outcome. That's my personal opinion.